genuinely, it's tremendously humbling to look out and see how many folks show up for a talk workshop on dreaming at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. It gives me hope. And it inspires me to keep going because it tells me that something that I've devoted so much of my life to has value, has meaning, right? Is that there are others like me, you know. So that's always nice. Yeah, come on in. So my name's Nick. It's nice to see everybody. And we'll start. We don't have a lot of time, you know. We have an hour. I was just thinking as I was walking over, like, how do you run a marathon in 5 minutes? You can't do it. So we have a finite amount of time, and we're going to try and go as deeply and meaningfully into this subject as possible, and hopefully have a chance to receive some feedback. You know, I'm really interested in what everybody has to share. So we'll start with just a few minutes to drop in here, let ourselves arrive. So whether you meditate regularly or have never meditated before, or you meditate all the time, you're not quite sure if you're doing it right, or you're the supreme meditative being of the universe, finding your way into your body, all of its sensations, feelings, connecting with your breath, and letting your breath drop down into your belly so that your belly expands as you inhale. You can even breathe down into your feet. Imagine this expansiveness in your feet, your root, softly contracting as you exhale. You could sigh. And even if we only did this for the next hour, it would be pretty good. And as we'll soon discover, all roads lead back to this eternally present moment, this experience of ourselves. And we are not alone. We live in a mystical, mysterious, living, breathing universe. And really the essence of what we're going to be talking about is rediscovering that by honoring a part of ourselves that is often neglected, that culturally, particularly in our Western culture, has played second fiddle. And that, of course, is dreaming. But more important than dreaming is being. And I don't say that from some book or even from some tradition, though there are traditions that echo that. I speak from experience. That at the pinnacle of dreaming, for me, is the experience of being. So all roads lead back to here. Welcome. So, I guess I don't plan these things anymore. I just kind of show up. Um, but I think I'd like to start by telling you a little story. I grew up a normal kid. I was anxious and combative. Maybe that wasn't your experience, but I was like, you know, kind of tough, athletic, just living the life that was laid out for me. And when I was about 22 years old, I was in college, and I finally got rid of all my requirements, all my major stuff, and I was able to take courses that I thought might be interesting, and was also just trying to graduate. So someone said, "Oh, there's this class, Tibetan mind-body healing. That's an easy A." And I thought, great, that's exactly what I want my last semester of college. So I signed up for that class and simultaneously took a yoga class to fulfill my gym requirement, right? Phys ed. So I was doing these two things simultaneously and just kind of going through the motions, though I knew something was special because each time I arrived at the Tibetan Buddhism class, the teacher had this sparkle about him, and everybody would feel so good. But I didn't really connect the dots. I didn't know why that was happening. And in the yoga class, we were learning postures, and I was kind of getting into my body a little bit. I remember I got a B on a paper, and I was like, "How do you get a B in yoga?" Yeah, no, true story. And then one night, about a month into this semester, I had a dream where I was shot between the eyes and died and went into a nothingness, just a kind of dark spaciousness. But I was aware that I was there. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I just died in my dream. I'm probably dead, right? And that's the urban legend, is that if you die in your dreams, you actually die. So I thought, okay, now I'm dead. And I floated there for a while and then was reborn through a birth canal in the dream, And then I woke up and I wrote down what happened and I thought, wow, something is different. I don't know what happened, but something is different. And about a year later, and I hadn't heard of lucid dreaming. I really didn't know what these were. Maybe like in passing, but this was kind of pre-Google days. Like you couldn't just look something up so quickly and right. It's like, get on with it. Anyway, long story short, a few months after that, I'd finished school, and then I started reading books by Carlos Castaneda. Has anybody ever read Carlos Castaneda? A few folks. And I read these like a manual. I thought this like, wow, this is the truth. And I later found out that some of the stuff he was writing about maybe didn't happen, but still, to this day, I read it as truth. Like this was a journal of mysticism and one of the only real sources that we have in our Western culture, that connects us, something that we can relate to that was just written by an academic, somebody who's like one of us and not a kind of distant tradition which we resonate with, but it always, for me anyway, feels like it's not quite at the heart of who I am. Where are my peers? And maybe you felt that before. Like for a long time after those experiences, I felt like I was searching in the dark. Who's the teacher? I saw lots of people teaching stretching all over the place, right? And that was great. But always I knew there was something more. Somewhere along the way, I began to record my dreams, to write everything down, almost as an obsession, right? To this day, I still can't. If I wake up from something and it was impactful, even if it didn't seem that impactful, but it was so vivid. If I don't write it down, it nags at me because I'm thinking to myself, maybe here is the key. Maybe here is something of importance, something that I can use, something that will come true. And imagine that, right? That 2 weeks later or 2 years later or 5 years later, it happens, and then there's like some kind of proof. Wow, right? I saw it through into the multiverse. So anyway, I've been driven by that kind of curiosity. And the first piece of advice, not that you need advice, is if you're interested in lucid dreaming and using your dreams as a vehicle for transformation, you should write them down as much as you can. It's not so much that you're going to discover some great meaning. And we'll talk about meaning and the way we look at our dreams and what they mean to us. Right? You may or may not find that through writing. But what you will do is pour intention into a part of ourselves that is more or less active. That's certainly, for most of us, not as active and vibrant as our waking selves. Which brings us back to this idea that we've been conditioned to believe that this is the true reality. Right? This physical waking reality, that this takes precedence, that this is where everything is going on. It's a consensus, right? It's an agreement. And this comes right out of yogic tradition. This is echoed in yogic tradition. It's echoed in Tibetan Buddhism and other traditions of Buddhism, Taoism. That this is where it's at. And your dreaming is this kind of secondary thing, right? What happens when you wake up from an intense dream? You go, oh, thank God that was just a dream, right? It was only a dream. What if your dreaming reality is just as real, just as pertinent, just as meaningful, just as capable of being a space for communication and growth as this reality? We privilege this one because we spend 12, 16, however many, if you don't sleep, 20 hours a day hanging out here, right? And only a few hours there. But put it into perspective. We sleep rather, about a third of our lives, right? So if you live to be 90, and I hope everybody lives to be a nice ripe old age, that's 30 years of sleep. 30 years of our lives that we're sleeping, right? And I know I didn't maybe think about this as much when I was younger, but the older I get, I realize how quickly this ride goes. Right? It's happening quickly. And you've really got to make the most of it. So we've got 30 years where we're asleep. And if we're not paying attention to that time, I don't want to say it's wasted. Our body is regenerating. Things are happening, right? We're regrowing ourselves. We're processing information. But what if you can harness that time? It's not all that different than embarking on a yoga practice while you're awake, right? You can go through life kind of trudging along, or you can start to wake yourself up. And lucid dreaming is, by definition, waking yourself up in a time of your life that would otherwise you'd be asleep, unconscious. So by a show of hands, who here has had a lucid dream before? Great. Who here has never heard of lucid dreaming? Okay. So a lucid dream is a dream where you know that you're in a dream. Yeah? So is anybody that raised their hand and said, I've never heard of this, or I don't, brand new. Now maybe they go, oh, wait a second, I have had that experience before, right? Yeah. Out of curiosity, has anyone had a dream that foretold the future? They dreamt of something and then it happened. Raise your hands high. Now, I ask this question because it's important that everybody sees that. Right? Raise it one more time. If you've had that experience, a dream that came true. And beyond, not just like, well, maybe that was the same. Like you saw it in your dream and then it happened. How do we explain that? Right? Other than time is not working the way that we think it's working. Right? So we'll put that aside. You can put that in your basket and leave that for later, and we'll see why that becomes important. But again, the main idea here is that we take for granted that this waking reality is our true reality where stuff's going on, and when we're asleep we go into our own little world And, sometimes there's like these pictures happening. Sometimes we experience beautiful things. Sometimes we experience terrifying things, right? But it's the theater of our individual minds. My experience has shown me that, yes, sometimes that's true. And other times, it may be possible that it's not just the theater of our own mind, but a theater of a sort of universal mind. That it's possible that we can communicate there with other people, with other beings, with the whole universe. So that's really what we're going to be talking about when we talk about lucid dream yoga. Okay? Because they're not the same thing. And it's not about doing yoga postures while you're asleep. Though I've done that, and it's fun. It's interesting, It's an interesting experience. And could be very beneficial. What we're after here is the experience of being while you're asleep and dreaming. The experience of being while you're asleep and dreaming. So let's try an exercise. Okay? Because first we have to unpack this idea of being. What does that really mean? Reconnect with your breath. I know this is some heady stuff, but it doesn't have to be. Realize that in this moment, we are sitting together on a giant rock flying through space at some unfathomable rate. None of us know where we're going, what we're doing here. None of us. We think we do. We can come up with good reasons. But we're totally immersed, enveloped in the mystery. See if you can tune in to that. Imagine that your body is inside of you, and that you are a limitless, infinite being. Breathing here. You feel the breeze caressing your skin. The breeze is also you, me, us. And everything that we see, everything that we feel is this dance. Arising, fluttering like a butterfly, and gradually passing away. Now bring to mind, if you like, someone or something that fills you with a great sense of joy. It could be a person or a pet, could be your favorite pet, or a spirit animal, or a special place in nature, real or imagined. Someone or something that sparks in you this inner smile that fills you with good feeling. Take a moment. Sometimes it comes right away. Sometimes it takes some time. And see if you can nurture that feeling. Almost like you've lit a fire and you're very gently breathing life into it. Breathing your attention, your intention. And imagine sending love, receiving love, like you're striking the tuning fork of your heart. And as you begin to cultivate this feeling, bringing it into this space. If your eyes are closed, you're welcome to open them, though you don't have to. Realizing that we're now meeting here together at this frequency. So it's one thing to cultivate love in your personal practice, and another thing to wear it on your sleeve, to lead with your heart. It approves. Yeah. So, practicing being, right? This is what we're after. It's the simplest thing, sometimes seems really challenging because we've got so many other things going on. How do we do this through dreaming? How do these things work together? So we mentioned writing down your dreams. As you write down your dreams, as you take more interest in your dreams, you start to grow this part of ourselves that has lain dormant. The same way that you learn a new language. Yeah? Next comes cultivating as much awareness as possible of reality and being. So we've established already that waking reality isn't necessarily any more real or unreal than your dreaming reality. Right? So there's a trick called reality testing that allows you to remain more present and aware of our conditions. So I invite you now to ask yourself, am I dreaming in this moment? Genuinely, from your heart, am I dreaming? And how do we know? Does anybody have a thought on that? How do we know that we're not dreaming right now? Yeah. We don't know. Yeah. You can't fly. That's good. What's that? Clock keeps time. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Turn on a light switch. Right. So some people are describing. This is going to get kind of loud. Hang tight. Hang tight. Good. So you can stay standing. You can have your hands at your sides or in front of your heart. Imagine connecting with one another. Right? You don't have to stay facing me. Connecting with one another. In fact, you might just take a look around, make eye contact. Imagine that we're in a dream. Right? We already established we don't know the difference. And that each being you encounter here is a reflection of self. Not just yourself, like what does this person have to teach me? Rather, what can we discover together through our connection? Feel free to take a walk around. I know you have your mat and your stuff, and please be really mindful of everybody's stuff. You don't have to stray too far. But apparently this is what the Spirit wanted us to do today. So we make the best of it. So we mentioned, and you can gradually find your way back to some space. It doesn't have to be your space, but a space where you feel comfortable, your spot. We mentioned recording your dreams, writing your dreams down. Yeah? Being in the presence of other dreamers. Being in the presence of other dreamers with the intention of activating each other, of waking each other up, probably more important, more valuable. There's only so much that we can do on our own. And I learned this through many years of trial and error, right? I was one of those cave yogi type guys. I wake up, I do my thing, right? Do my practice. I not really sharing it out in the world, right? It's something very internal for me, very deep for me. And what I've come to realize is that was just my own defenses. That to really be the embodiment of the universe, right? To really be connected, we have to realize that everyone around us is us. We have to be that connection in the physical. Because it's not that this physical reality doesn't matter. I'm not saying, oh, dreaming is that's where it's at and this is phony. I mean, from a certain perspective, right? It's all an illusion. It's all this play. So one doesn't take precedence over the other. However, this is what we've got. Right? This is what we've got. This is where we're meeting. So the journey of the heart, the journey of yoga, of truly connecting with ourselves and with the whole cosmos, right? It doesn't take a detour around humanity. It goes right into the heart of humanity. There's something called the Bodhisattva vow. Yes. Right? And in Buddhist mythology, this idea is that when someone achieves their enlightenment or has this opportunity to achieve enlightenment and they don't have to come back into the cycle of death and rebirth, and we don't need to get into all of that, that they prolong their own advancement, their own enlightenment, to come and help liberate all beings. This Bodhisattva vow, while a beautiful story as a myth, is meant to be played out in our own lives. That the reason we do our work is to inspire each other, is to help each other grow. And again, to reiterate this idea is that nothing will help you grow, right, as strongly, as deeply, as profoundly as being truly present with everyone you meet. Because each of us are a reflection of the other. And we have to be very aware of how that impacts our daily lives, of how that impacts the way we see the world. Right? That everyone and everything is an aspect of ourself. And ourself is much more multi-dimensional than we give ourselves credit for. So every night we go to sleep, we have dreams. We write our dreams down, right? This helps to grow this part of ourselves. Connecting with like-minded beings and non-like-minded beings. Everybody can meet somewhere, right? So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be an insular thing, like, only the people at Floyd Yoga Jam really get me, right? It's not about that. It's about leading with your heart, staying connected to this source of being always, right? And with everyone. Just challenging. Along the way, you encounter roadblocks. Let's call them roadblocks, right? You have a dream in the middle of the night and something terrible happens. Anybody ever had a nightmare before? Raise your hands if you've had a nightmare before. Nightmare, right? A nightmare is, and we could choose all kinds of language frames to make sense of this, but a nightmare is a communication from your body mind being, telling you that something is not right in Camelot, right? Something is off. There's something that needs exploring. And this is where we really tie together lucid dreaming and yoga. Yoga is this unfolding, expanding, unfurling into beinghood, right? In a very practical way, it's a purification of our body-mind. We're clearing out all of the conditioning, all the junk that we've been fed, so that we can feel and be more deeply immersed in this world, in our lives, yeah? In dreaming as in waking, we encounter these things that hold us up, that stunt our growth. Let's call them, for now, emotional blockages. Sometimes people talk about them as energy blockages. In the yogic traditions, often called samskaras. That's the term I like most, samskara. And this means literally a multi-dimensional blockage. That you have some kind of physical ailment, and with that comes an energetic charge. It has a certain kind of feel in your body, an emotional tone, right? And belief and thought systems that support that thing. And it doesn't matter whether you suffered a kind of emotional wound somewhere along the way and it results in a physical ailment, or you have a physical ailment that suddenly takes on a whole narrative, a whole story. But when we think about our back pain or our knee pain, or I'm naming all my own pains, right? Not even think about it. When we think about having some kind of stuff going on, illness, right? There's always a story attached to that thing. And your dreams, not all of them, but occasionally, are the manifestation of that story. Now, you may not have a one-to-one relationship, right? A lot of people have really meaningful dreams, powerful dreams, and the first thing they do is they wake up and they go, I'm going to go Google it, right? I'm going to go to my dream dictionary, which was written by some person in some culture, and it says, my teeth fell out, this means that. Or this, my hair fell out, right, which happened to me. This means that. I encourage you not to do that too much. It can be helpful, right? Sometimes you might find something that resonates really true. But there's no better dream interpreter than yourself, right? Than really tuning in to what makes sense for you. Sometimes you'll know immediately what your dream is trying to tell you. Has anybody ever had a dream like that? You might ask a question, you wake up, and then it's just, that was exactly what I was looking for. That's the answer I needed, right? Maybe it's not the answer I wanted, but it means something immediately. You know it in an intuitive way. Other times, you might have this nightmare experience that shakes you up. Rather than thinking, what did that mean when, my teeth fell out, or when I saw my best friend get in an accident or something tragic happen. You don't need to take that route. In fact, you can't unwind these samskaras. I don't want to say can't as in never, but most of the time through your rational mind, through your thinking mind. Because your thinking mind is by nature caught up in all of this conditioning, right? It's trying to make sense. But what you can do is go to the energetic, emotional charge of the experience. And you can do this via your dreams or via waking experience. You can even do it right now. So let's take a moment and try this. Now, you don't have to do this, because basically what I'm asking of you is to feel into something uncomfortable, right? To feel into something uncomfortable. Now, do you recall that when we started, we thought of someone or something, right? Everybody, people head for the exit now. It's okay. It's cool. It's cool. I'm not, yeah, it's cool. So when we began, we asked ourselves to find someone or something that fills us with joy. So take a moment and see if you can reconnect with that. Right? This ally, inner resource, safe place, however you like to think of it, whatever name helps. It may just be a felt sense. You're able to tap into good feeling. So as we move forward, keep in mind that you always have this ally here with you. And that at any moment that you feel you need to take your foot off the gas, you can call on this ally, change your mood, bring about good feeling and rest, safety, security, sense of groundedness. Now I invite you, and again, this is just an invitation, to welcome an image or a memory, a feeling that makes you feel uncomfortable. It could be a pain in your body. It could be some kind of emotion that you know you're sitting with. It might feel like pain, like agitation, something that feels like suffering. You could recall a dream that stuck with you. After all, your memories are not that much different from your dreams. So tapping into this wound, one approach I like is to try and feel into the edge of tears. You know that feeling like you might cry? As if you were putting your finger on it. Now again, everyone has different experience, and if you don't feel like you're ready to go there now, you don't have to. And you can always come back. You can always take a break. But this place, and you may not feel like you're ready to put your finger right on it. It may just be as kind of, okay, there's something here. See if you can find it in your body. Where does this feeling live in your body? You don't have to name it. You don't have to judge it. Just noticing your edge. In yoga, we talk a lot about finding your edge. And this is, for the moment, your emotional edge. You don't have to do anything. You don't want to try and change anything or heal anything. Just being with this feeling. It might change. You might feel any number of sensations. Breathing, holding space as if you were listening to a dear friend that's suffering. Simply holding space for yourself. Rumi, poet Rumi, says the wound is the place where the light enters. And indeed, in the depths of suffering, these shadowy parts of ourself that we stuff down, there is light. So you can take a break whenever you're ready. It's a music festival, after all, a yoga festival. But for me, this is the work. The joy and the play, it's part of it. It's a beautiful part of it, and we need that. But finding these edges and learning to be with them with compassion, from a place of being, and realizing that the baggage, these things that we carry with us, they don't consume us. We can let them, right? We can fuse with them, but that's not the route that we want. That's not the route of yoga. So we take time to touch into them, to create space from them, to track them in our body, to feel where they live, always coming back to the experience of the body and being without the need to manipulate, without the need to change, without the need to force things into boxes, to even name them. Just being with. So the practice of dream yoga is to take the experience of your dreams, the information of your dreams, right? Whether blissful, magical, or scary, frightening, fearful, and to wear them in your body when you wake up. In fact, you can wear them in your body in the midst of the dream. Right? At this point, the dichotomy begins to crumble. Dreaming, waking, it's all experience. None more important than the other. Yes, some dreams are quote unquote ordinary. They might not be charged with that much meaning. Right? Stay with them anyway. If only for the richness of experience, the beauty that is life, right? Just like our daily lives, not everything, not every moment seems like it's of importance. Yet at the same time, from a place of being, every instant is filled with wonder and magic. So taking the experience of your dream, and when you wake up, especially those difficult dreams, you can sit down, you can move, whatever your way is of reaccessing that state of being, reaccessing the feeling, and being with it. I'll share with you a little story about this to illustrate it. A couple of years ago, I had a dream one night of my childhood nanny, right? When I was really young, an infant, I was raised by this woman. And she passed away when I was 4 or 5. And I really didn't think much of her, because when you're an infant, life is like a dream. I mean, people come in your reality, they leave your reality, and all you're really doing is kind of feeling. So I had this dream. And this nanny, she came to me and she held me against her breast. And it felt warm and loving and wonderful. And it lasted for some time, and it felt just as real as this waking reality, right? As real as the ground beneath our feet. I felt it, like I was right there. And in the next moment, we separated, we created some space, and I asked her name was Cheryl, "Cheryl, is everything okay?" And she said, "No." She shook her head. And in that moment, the tears just started pouring. I mean, I cried so deeply. Yeah. Crying. I woke up crying. buckets. So I wrote down the experience. I felt it, you know. I felt it. And this is where things get tricky, because then you say, oh, well, I got to go to work or something like that. Right. But fortunately, I had some time. So I went and I sat down on my couch, which is where I do my meditation practice, and I recalled the experience of the dream. And just as if she were right there in front of me, right? The dream showed me where she was in my awareness. She was right in front of me. In the dream space, she wasn't to the left, she wasn't to the right, she was right there. And I said, Cheryl, is everything okay? Like, I brought myself right back into it. And she said, no. And the tears started again. This went on for 5 days. Not continuously, right? I sat for maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long I could take it. Then I was like, okay, I got to go do something. Was I tender the rest of the day? Absolutely, right? That's life. But I wasn't bottling up what I was feeling. I was trying to be with it. 5 days. And by the 5th morning, I ran out of tears. Couldn't cry anymore. And I asked Cheryl, is everything okay? And she said, yes, everything is okay. And in that moment, my heart opened and I erupted into joy. It just felt wonderful. It felt like something had healed inside, right? That night when I went to sleep and I went into dreaming, almost instantly I became aware that I was in the dream, right? Aware I was dreaming. Recognized that the dream state itself was just a play, was just this theater for working out my stuff. And in that moment was a flash of light, and beautiful mandalas emerged in my field of vision. Colors and vibrant shapes, and something that felt to me to be closer to the essence of reality. I can't really explain why, other than it was beyond names. It was beyond code. It was beyond language. It was beyond all of our symbols. It was direct experience. Direct experience. So there is this symbiotic relationship between your dreams and our bodies, between our dreams and waking. And as we process these emotions, these blockages, these samskaras, our dreams will respond in turn. And soon will come a day where not only will you have awareness within your dream, but also awareness of this entire process, and it will all melt away. And in that moment, you'll feel freedom, genuine freedom. And I wish that onto everyone here. It's a challenging journey, this heroic journey. But it's a beautiful journey. Thank you. Namaste. Yes, sure. Yes. There's a question being asked. If you all want to hang out for a sec. Yes, absolutely. You're dreaming. So the question was, I heard a couple of questions. One is, do we need to just use the information of our dreams in order to initiate this process of healing our wounds, of untethering ourselves from our conditioning, right, from our wounds? And the answer is yes, you can use anything that helps to motivate this process, right? It's kind of like doing your emotional laundry. And there's the clothes that hang out at the top of the hamper, right? Like the stuff you wore yesterday, and you can start to process that immediately. And there's also sometimes some really funky stuff that's hidden way down right in the back of the closet. And you're like, well, I really ought to wash that. And it's been a long time. So you can use the information of your dreams. You can use your experience in the present moment, right? When you feel something, and this question comes up a lot, and we'll get to the second part. People ask me very often, well, when you're being so empathic with folks, when you're connecting with folks, don't you take on other people's energy, right? How do we stop ourselves from being, and a lot of healers here, I'm sure, I take on everybody's energy. If you approach this from the place of there really is no you to take on anything, there's just this flowing of experience and there are blockages, right? The moment you feel the energy, this quote unquote foreign energy, strike a blockage and you feel like you're taking it on, be with it. Address it immediately. Breathe and begin the process of releasing, right? Not trying to force it out. You don't need to try and you can sage, sure. I mean, there's all these different things that you can do. But breathing and opening your body, opening your awareness is the most surefire method of allowing energy to continue to flow. And the second part of that question was, can you ask your dreams? Yes, absolutely. You can absolutely use your dreams as this space to dialogue, right? You can, before you go to sleep, in addition to keeping your journal where you're writing your dreams down, you might also write down intentions for your dreaming if you're trying to figure something out. You're tapping into a place of consciousness, of knowing, that is generally deeper and more aware, has the potential to be more aware than even our waking reality, right? So it's this part of ourself that we're kind of raising, right, that we're bringing back to life, and it's a part of ourself that is actually potentially more conscious, I think, or at least equally as conscious and aware as any other experience that we have in our lives. And I think, for me, the experiences of dreaming, in part because a lot of the sensory input of waking life is suppressed, those experiences seem to me more true, right? Because that thinking mind that's on the clock, that has the stress of life, that's the part that can get put to sleep, and the part that is pure awareness can thrive. You're welcome. Any contact you can make with your dreaming self is valuable. Well, they're all interconnected. It's just a question of the kind of language you use to express it. But yes, you're having a nervous reaction. It has to do with your nervous system. And at the same time, it's also an emotional expression. So we have to stop here. Again, my name is Nick. I have a mailing list. If you're interested, you can come on up and write your name down. I'm the director of a school called Evolutionary Education. And we are always evolving, designing experiential learning practices for anyone and everyone. So all different ages, all different genres. There's really no end to the sorts of things that we hope to achieve with this school. So we're enacting it here, and gradually there'll be more and more online content, but we currently run 200 and 300 hour yoga psychology teacher trainings. So if you're interested in those, you can sign up, come talk to me about it. We also, I travel around teaching Yoga Nidra, which is essentially the yogic approach to sleep, dreams, and deep relaxation. But basically is the practice that we've just touched on, this practice of being. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. We have a website. Again, if you're interested, you can come and meet me up here. I'm happy to hang out with you. And thank you all so much for your attention and your patience. And for singing with me. I love it. Much love, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend.